Good morning, Year 10. Okay, over the next 6 lessons, we will be taking part in an exciting project about challenging extremism. So we are going to be learning about what extremists are, okay, positive and negative extremists, learning about what makes these people extremists, what characteristics these groups have. We'll be looking at things like fake news and how important it is that you have skills to identify whether things are propaganda, okay, and what articles and qualities these pieces of information would have. We'd be looking at the relationships between people and conflict, okay, and how all of these things influence the world around us. So for today then, we are going to start, okay, with our layers of inference. So you have in front of you this sheet here. So on the sheet, there are 3 layers. So the first section we're going to start with is right in the middle. You've got 2 images in the middle, okay. The first one tells you it's the Montgomery bus boycott. The second one tells you it's 9/11. So I'm not going to give you any more information about those right now, because in the first box in the middle, I want you to write down very quickly, okay, what you already know about either of these images, okay? So you've got about 2 to 3 minutes to do this task. Just write in anything you know about the Montgomery bus boycott or about 9/11 in the inner section of the table. Okay? Okay, right, so we should now all have information on the inner section about what we already know. Middle, you would like to share?
Yeah, I have one on 9/11. I know it happened on the 11th of September 2001.
Excellent.
Planes were hijacked and were flown into the buildings depicted.
Excellent. Do we know who hijacked the planes or any more information about that?
No, I think it might have been Al-Qaeda.
Okay, so was it an extremist group or?
Yeah, it was a terrorist group.
Okay.
Extremist group.
So why did they do it? What was the point they were trying to make? What were they trying to achieve by hijacking these planes and flying them into these buildings?
Well, I know one reason was to strike fear into like the citizens around the area.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Do you have anything different?
No, I was just going to say that it was masterminded by Osama bin Laden.
Okay, yeah, definitely. And again, what do you think the impact, what was he trying to achieve by doing these? Or anything different to what Tom just said?
To kind of like to prove that he was a force to be reckoned with, that no one can mess about with him.
Yeah. Okay, so we know when it took place, we know what happened. Any other information?
It was in New York in the USA.
Yeah, New York. What were the buildings known as? The Twin
Towers.
The Twin Towers. Okay, so they were very tall buildings that were obviously attacked by an extremist group to, like Tom said, strike fear into people and to try and, like you just said, to try and show their force and show their power over others. Okay. Anything about the Montgomery bus boycott?
I assume that it has something to do with segregation in America.
Excellent. How do you know that? How can you tell?
I just inferred based on the image.
Okay, which is exactly what I just asked you to do, isn't it? With the layers of inference. I just want you to look at the image. So what in the image kind of tells you that it's about segregation?
Well, there's the fact that there's many black people who are walking or on bikes, none of them are on the bus.
Yeah.
So you can assume that that's where the segregation happened.
Okay. So there's a very famous story about something that happened on a bus.
Is it about Rosa Parks and how she kind of changed it for black people by sitting at the front of the bus and kind of fighting against the act that they have to sit at the back of the bus?
Yeah, so black people were treated differently, so discriminated against based on their skin colour, and the rules at that time were very different, wasn't it, for black people in America to what it was to be white. Okay, so again, another form of extremism. Okay, so we're going to now go back to our sheets and we're going to look at what we can infer. Anything else? We're giving you a little bit more information from just looking at the pictures. What can we infer about them? Any further information? Okay, so what could we infer?
I could infer that the Montgomery bus boycott was to do with the separation between black and white people and how black people were treated completely differently to white people just because of their skin colour.
Yes, the segregation of two communities. Excellent.
From the information we were given, I can infer that one of them had a positive impact and the other had a negative impact. The Montgomery bus boycott having the positive and 9/11 having the negative, because one fought for their right and the other brought fear rather than trying to fix it their own way.
Excellent. So linking into what we're learning about today, about the different types of extremists, you've inferred from these images that they already, we can see there's two different, very different ways about getting your message across and getting your point heard. So the Montgomery bus boycott went about things in a very non-violent way, and just made a stand, made a point, okay, of not going on the buses. They boycotted, okay, refused to use the buses. However, the 9/11 attacks were extremely violent, okay, loads of people were killed, innocent citizens going about their daily lives, okay, and that point obviously got a point across, but in a very violent way. So excellent, there's two very different ways, okay, of getting our messages across. Tom?
We can infer, well, I can infer from the Montgomery bus boycott picture that at the time Jim Crow laws were in place.
Okay, do you want to explain a little bit about what they are?
It was discrimination written into law at the time.
Yeah.
Preventing black people and white people being using the same facilities out in the public and stuff like that.
And how do you know they were in place during that time? What in the picture may give you that information?
Well, there was obviously segregation on the buses as well, so that's like the time when it was all happening.
That's one of the things that was written in the law. Yeah, excellent, fantastic. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do now then on these sheets, is there anything now you would still like to know? Any questions you have? Any predictions about the future? Anything else you would like to know? Your last layer on the sheet. Okay, so you should now have, some questions in the outer layer about things you would still like to know. What have you got written in your outer layer of inference?
How many people died during 9/11?
Okay, yeah, excellent, good question. So how many lives were lost because of that extremist act? Yeah, very good question.
Did 9/11 change anything, like the way people acted in New York at the time?
So what long-term effects did 9/11 have on not just New York, but if you think about the world as well? Yeah, definitely it's made a massive impact on our lives, and even to this day I would say it still has made an effect on people's lives. Okay, I remember it happening when I was in school, and it was the first violent extremist act I had really ever witnessed or had happened in my life, and it definitely had an impact on me during that time, and it made me think about things that I'd never thought about before. Okay, and obviously we're still talking about it today, so it still has an impact on our lives.
Was the Montgomery bus boycott successful, or did it spark more hatred?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. Obviously with recent things going on in America, like the George Floyd incident, we could argue that maybe it wasn't as successful as it was hoped it was going to be. There still is some segregation, okay, and some form of extremist belief, okay, within not just America but within many countries around the world. So, you know, we could assess how effective these things were or weren't. So what we're going to do next, we are going to watch, a quick video about extremism. It's from the BBC, and it just gives you a little bit more information, about extremism and what it is and the different forms of extremism. So while we're watching the video clip, I don't want you to write anything down at the moment. I just want you to concentrate, because some of the information we are going to learn, we are then going to use in our next task, which is a card sort.
Sometimes being extreme makes something more exciting, like extreme sports. But sometimes it makes things much, much worse. E is for extremism. Extremism is when people hold harmful religious or political views. But who decides what's extreme? Normally, a society calls something extreme if it opposes the things that matter to it. For example, if a country believes in democracy and equal rights, someone who strongly opposes this could be seen as an extremist. But is having different ideas always bad? Take this chap. Mahatma Gandhi was a Hindu who campaigned to end British rule in India. The British called him an extremist and put him in prison, even though he was non-violent in his protests. But today, Gandhi is thought of as a hero who stood up to the injustice of colonial rule. His ideas that seemed extreme in the 1930s are now seen as normal and fair. Beliefs that differ from ours shouldn't be seen as something to fear. With the privilege of free speech in the UK, people should be able to speak their mind even if we disagree with them. After all, that's what creates debate, which is a good thing. Debates aren't scary. What is scary is when people advocate and use violence to force their ideas onto others. Religion is sometimes used to justify this, with violent extremists claiming God is on their side. Most religions have had violent extremists at times. For instance, when Protestant and Catholic extremists fought over Northern Ireland in the Troubles. The extremism we currently hear about most are groups that align themselves to Islam, such as Al-Qaeda and so-called Islamic State, who use terrible violence and commit terror attacks around the world. While these groups claim to be Islamic, it's important to note that their interpretation of Islam is rejected by the vast majority of the world's Muslims. In fact, most people who've been killed by these so-called Islamic groups have been Muslims, so blaming Islam as a whole is wrong. It's not just religious groups that commit extreme acts, though. Atheists do too. Communists in China or the former Soviet Union didn't believe in God. They also killed millions in the name of their extreme beliefs. So what causes extremism? Well, some people are brought up that way. If you're told from childhood that a certain people or faith group are evil, then how do you know any better? But when someone becomes an extremist later in life, it's called radicalization. Why does this happen? Well, life can be hard. Complicated problems to do with politics, economics, culture, jobs, environment, war, government can overwhelm us. When life feels unfair, extremists attract other angry people by giving them someone to blame. And no, that doesn't make sense. That's why we call it extremism.
So there was an awful lot of information then in that video we just watched, okay? Anybody want to expand or have any questions on anything from there?
It mentioned about the communists and how their views were extreme, but they weren't necessarily extreme in the countries which were communist.
Because other people had the same extreme views?
Yes.
So it kind of, and they also mentioned about Gandhi and how he was viewed as extreme at that time. However, now we generally wouldn't view what he was saying as being extreme. So extremism can change depending on where you are. It can depend on, you know, your external influences, as I said on the video. So if you're brought up thinking these things are normal, as like the Nazis, the people who were Nazis probably didn't think some of the views were extreme. However, they definitely were. So it very much is about, you know, taking things in context and looking at the bigger picture. And things that we view as extreme now, maybe in the future, we may not. So it can change. Obviously our world is constantly changing. Things are changing around us all the time. Okay, so things can progress, and as they do so, views, ideologies, okay, and lifestyles can change as well. Anything else about what causes, anything to break down from the video?
It could also be stuff like, so you could be classed as an extremist, whether it's something as much as killing someone or even just standing there saying that what someone's doing is wrong. So it's like that in itself is extreme, going from one end of it, like mass murder, to just sitting and protesting, like non-violently.
Yeah. So there's many different ways to be classed as an extremist. There's many different things you could do or not do. So it could be boycotting, it could be refusing to do something as well. So having extreme views or being extremist covers a vast range of ideas, isn't it? And a vast range of things. It's not just a group of people who are extremists, as sometimes we're led to believe by the media. Okay, and extremism isn't a new thing. It has always been around. Okay, it probably always will. People will always have different ideas, opinions, and ideologies. Okay, and then what I thought was really interesting about the clip is how extremism comes about. So the two ways really that it said that extremism can develop. So the first way it said was how you're brought up. It could be your external influences as a child. If you're brought up in a country and a family who has a particular belief system or a particular way of living, okay, you are obviously going to be brought up to think the same way as your family, as your community around you. It's generally what happens. Okay. However, we then have people who change their views as they get older in life, who weren't extreme, perhaps they were brought up not to be extremists, and then they can become radicalized, where they're groomed and their views, their ideas, their mindset changes to become more extreme. Okay, and sort of extremist groups like ISIS have radicalized very many people into joining them. That's how they recruit. That's how they are successful in what they do. Because they need to recruit, they need people to join to be able to carry out their cause. What we're going to do now then, I am going to give you 2 different colour post-it notes. Okay, so you've got this kind of greeny colour, which is going to go this side, and I couldn't find the yellow and I thought it was too similar to the green, so we'll have pink instead. Okay, so pink is going to be post-it 1 and green is going to be post-it 2. So on your pink post-it note, you are going to write down your own definition. So what does extremism mean to you? So if somebody, I don't know, younger brother or sister or cousin, said to you one day, what's an extremist? Well, what is extremism? Okay, what would you say to them? What would you explain extremism as on your pink post-it note? And then on your green post-it note, I want you to think why do people become extremists? Why would they join these causes? Why would they have these views? Okay, what would cause them to become radicalised? Why would they want to join certain groups, or why would they want to refuse doing certain things? Okay, why would they want to do these things? Okay, so I can see some fantastic answers on the board here. First of all, we'll go through your definition of what extremism is. So, extremism means to go through extreme lengths to force more people into believing their ideologies. They can either have positive or negative impacts. An example of extremism would be the events of 9/11, which had a negative impact on loads of people as they were killed. Okay, I think that's a very good example. Anybody got any comments? Do we agree with that definition? Yeah, generally we all think that's quite a well explained definition. Yeah, I would agree. Okay, we'll choose another. Extremism is when people have a group of thoughts and beliefs that go against society's general ideas and practices. Examples could be the suffragettes or ISIS. Do we agree with that one? Yeah, and they've given a non-violent and a violent example there as well. Okay, so why do people become extremists? Let's have a little look. So people become extremists when they may surround themselves with people who have extremist views. Some people may also be raised to believe in extremist ideologies. Okay, so there's 2 points there. Yeah, you could surround yourselves, your peers could influence you to become an extremist. Or you may be brought up to have extreme beliefs. Okay, either of those could be true. So some people believe extremists either become extremists either because they were pressured into that, or they were brought up that way, or something could have happened to them in their lives. Maybe somebody killed their family. It could mean they want revenge, or they could join an extremist group that would have the same ideas they may have. We are going to work in our groups. You all have a pack of cards in front of you, okay, with various people or groups. So on the front of the card is a picture and a name, and on the back of the card there's a lot of information telling you who they are, what they did, okay, what their beliefs, and some keywords linked to these people. Okay, so the first thing I want you to do is to sort your cards into 2 piles. I want you to try and sort them into any positive extremists in one pile and any negatives in a separate pile. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to familiarise yourselves with the people or groups in these cards, because there's an awful lot of information to read through. So we are now going to use deepening thinking to try and order these extremists into the most positive, so like on a continuum line at one side, all the way down, okay, to the most negative. And I want you to be able to justify your choices. So make sure you know why you have put whoever you've put as the most positive. Why did you put them there? Why are they the most positive? What have they done? Okay, down to the most negative. Why are they negative and what have they done? Okay, so 5 minutes. Your group need to agree on the final order. You all need to be in agreement, so there may be some discussion getting in, that is absolutely fine.
These are like that.
EDL. With he made the cookies.
Yeah, but you always think that Adolf Hitler had a more negative impact on society. Everyone knows who Adolf Hitler is.
Everyone knows who ISIS is.
Not everyone.
She got shot for standing up for what she believed in at like 11 years old, I think she got shot.
Suffragettes fought for all women's rights, so women in general,
Of all races.
of all races, all kinds of people, without exclusion. So, and it had a big impact on modern day society now, and it's still fighting for women's rights to make women have an equal to men.
Okay, right, when we are ready then, we have a little discussion, okay, about the order that we have put things in and why.
The suffragettes.
Okay, and why do you think that is? Why did you put them?
Because they fought for all women's right in general of any race and whoever they were, rather than just white women, it was all women. And it had a big impact on modern day society now, so now women have equal rights to men instead of just men being superior.
Okay, fantastic. And then who did you put after those?
We put Martin Luther King, then Nelson Mandela, then Malala, then EDL, then Anders, then ISIS, then Adolf Hitler.
Okay, do you want to talk through any of the other reasoning why you put them in that order?
We put Adolf Hitler as last because of his mass killing of Jews and the fascism and racism he caused, and how he thought that there was an ideal race and that he was superior, but really it's not.
Well, we put Martin Luther King first because of all that he did in America, fighting for equal rights between white and black people, which is quite significant. And although even today they're not technically equal because of the hatred they get, it still made a huge impact on equaling out the racism and all the segregation in America. And in last place we put Adolf Hitler because of everything he did during World War II and all the millions of Jews that he killed. Everyone knows Adolf Hitler because of the negative impact he's had on society. So that's how we weighed it out, based on how you know them and how much negative impact they've had on society.
Any other reasons? Who did you put in the middle? Why did you put them there? So because Jan Breivik and, is it?
Nelson Mandela.
Nelson Mandela.
Mandela, okay. So why are they in the middle? Why?
Well, we had a bit of an argument over where we put the EDL and Anders. I think that the EDL is worse than Anders because they've made more of a negative impact because you know about them. You don't know about Anders, and if he'd made a real negative impact on society, you'd know about it. You'd know what he had done. But I didn't know who he was. None of us knew who he was.
It could be the fact that it wasn't in this country. The EDL is in this country. That could be another reason why we know about them more than we know about Anders Breivik. Okay. So what was the outcome of your discussion, and what did you decide? Which one was more?
We decided that the EDL was worse.
Okay.
And I disagree that it was just because it was in this country, because if you think of Adolf Hitler, that was across Europe and not in this country.
Yeah.
And yet there's still a huge amount of negative impact on society.
Yeah, good point. Tom, do you want to add anything?
Well, we had Malala in second, which I don't think many people had. Malala, was it in like 2013 that she got attacked by the Taliban?
2012. On the back, yeah.
She had a massive impact on schools around the world and women being able to go to schools in like the Middle East and Africa and places like that. So yeah, we had her in second for that.
So before Malala, were you aware that many girls didn't actually go to school in some countries, or did you think that school was just something that everybody got because it's what we get in this country?
Yeah, at the time I generally just thought that many people could go to school, but after what she did, then...
Yes, it's raised awareness of an issue that in many other countries that education is a big, huge privilege for us, that in many countries people don't actually get the same rights and the same as we do. Okay, I can see some fantastic answers and, you know, some really good conversation and some good thought has gone into this. Okay, so well done, it's been fantastic. So we're going to move on now to our next task. Leave your cards as they are, because they may help you, okay, when it comes to the next task. So on your line paper, I want you to write about whether it's ever acceptable to be an extremist. So I've got some sentence starters. So I think it is or isn't acceptable because, for example, on the other hand, instead of doing this, they could do something else, give an alternative. An example to support my point is, however, in my opinion, to summarise. Your keywords, then, I want you to use as many of these as you can. Violent extremism, non-violent extremism, non-violent protesters, demonstration, fundamentalists, radical or radicalisation you could use as well, militant, far right, Islamophobia and civil disobedience. So a lot of these words, if you're unsure of what they mean and you need to check, a lot of them are on the keywords on the back of your cards here, okay? Okay, 7 minutes, put your hand up if you need any help or if you want to check anything with me, okay? Any volunteers to read their paragraphs out? Yep, we'll start with you.
I think it is acceptable to be an extremist because you can take part in non-violent extremism. You can be classed as an extremist by simply fighting for the rights of others. On the other hand, it is not acceptable to be an extremist if you're violent and take part in violent extremism. However, some people may not have a choice to become an extremist because they may have been forced and threatened to follow a belief, which leads them to be usually violent with extremism.
Okay, excellent. So you think that it's okay if you're not violent, but then maybe some people are forced into violent extremism, so it's out of their control really, about maybe because of their upbringing, the country they're born in, various factors could contribute to why they're in that situation. Okay, yeah, excellent, yeah.
I think it is acceptable to be an extremist, with the exception of willing, violent and hurtful extremists. For example, Malala is a peaceful protester who fought for women's right to go to school against the Taliban, which had a positive impact, whereas Adolf Hitler was a violent leader who killed millions of Jewish people, and he is believed to be more of a terrorist than an extremist.
Okay, so you think that it's again, if we're having a positive impact, then it's generally okay. If you're doing it for others and you're doing it for a positive cause, yeah, whereas but what we think is a positive cause could be very different to what other people think of as a positive cause, couldn't it?
Yeah, I suppose I've just been like, for example, with like ISIS, how they like kill millions of people. Okay. Like, obviously for people who are in ISIS, they think it's a good thing, but for like a majority of the global population would think that it's wrong to kill millions of people for their own cause.
Yeah. Okay. So if the ideology sits without of what we would say is a general consensus of the population, what people would believe, then you would say that if it's harmful, or causes murder or death, then it would be wrong.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it is acceptable to be an extremist because of the positive extremist acts that took place. They were non-violent and fought for the rights that they deserved. Like a few examples would be Malala, who fought for women's rights to go to school against Taliban, and Martin Luther King fought against racism and for the rights of those of colour. And they had a positive impact on society, whereas violent extremists is unacceptable in my opinion because they can physically and mentally scar a society. When demonstrating and negative extreme acts take place, it can cause fear and damage all the society. So like Adolf Hitler, who killed many people, he had no right to, and at the end of the day didn't solve anything that he was trying to prove a point to other than cause fear against people.
Yeah, so groups like the EDL and Anders Breivik, who try to get their point across in sort of sometimes violent ways, you would say that you're not really doing any good in that. You're turning people against, even if your cause originally maybe had some positive points. If you're doing it in a violent way, you may then turn people against what you were originally trying to achieve. Yeah. Is that what you were trying to say?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It is acceptable to be an extremist depending on whether your beliefs are for a positive or negative change. Also, how you act upon those views in a violent or non-violent way. If you become militant and use violence as a weapon, I feel that it is totally unacceptable. But if you peacefully protest, I think you're allowed to retain and share those beliefs as long as they are positive.
So you say it's not the beliefs that are good or bad, it's how we go about showing our beliefs and getting our point across. That's what makes it a good or bad or positive or negative.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Do we generally agree with that? People generally agree saying that it's not, the beliefs that are good or bad. It's how you go about expressing those beliefs that makes it positive or negative.
No, because like, say if you're Islamophobic and you think that everyone that follows Islam should be dead, like that's your belief, but that doesn't mean it's a good belief, because even if you're not going to do anything about that, that's still a negative view that you can portray against others, which then means even if you won't do something negative or harmful, if you make someone else believe that, they may do something that could be violent or harmful.
And yeah.
Like for example, with the EDL, they mainly have like protests and things like that. Just like yeah, sure, that's what a lot of peaceful protesters with good impacts do. But they're still like getting across a bad message, which could then spread to more people who would take it further, to, like violence.
Yeah. The message, as well as how you're portraying the message, can also be positive and negative.
Yeah.
So your ideologies can grow and can sort of develop into, like you said, into others, can start to radicalise others, manipulate how other people think, even if you yourself are not willing to carry out violence or to do any negative extremist acts, then others may do so in the name of, you know, whatever opinions you had originally. The last thing we're going to do now then, okay, is thoughts and crosses. So a little bit like noughts and crosses, okay, but we're using what we've learned today to kind of get our way across the board. So we're going to split, okay, into two groups. So this is group 1, okay, this side of the aisle, group 1, this side of the aisle is group 2. Okay, you choose the question, you've got 30 seconds to answer it. Okay, so your aim is to get 3 crosses in the line. Your aim is to get 3 noughts in a line. It can be diagonal, it can be vertical, but it has to be all in a line, okay? Lewis, choose a number, please.
1.
1. So define extremism. You've got 30 seconds.
Extremism is a belief or ideal that goes against society's constraints or what is considered to be normal.
Excellent, thank you. And we'll go put that there to show you've got that one done for your team. We'll go back there, yeah.
2.
2. What are the key differences between positive and negative extremism?
The final impact, I suppose. So whether it strikes fear or has a positive outcome. So like 9/11, it put fear into people's heads, but with something like Martin Luther King, it made black people feel safe.
So the outcome and whether it causes fear or negativity or not. Okay, excellent. So we'll come back to
7.
7, okay. What are the reasons a person might hold extremist views?
A person might hold extremist views because of where they grew up, or like their family or community. If they were like groomed by an organisation, or if they had like an unjust government, like with Gandhi.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, excellent, fantastic. Okay, so we'll come back. 5. Why is it important for all people to be tolerant of and open to others' beliefs?
Because you want people to be tolerant of your beliefs as well. However, but that's not strictly true though, because if you have negative beliefs, or oh my god, I don't know how to say this. If you have negative beliefs, people aren't always going to be tolerant of that. So if you spread hatred and stuff, people aren't going to be tolerant of you. However, if you're someone like Martin Luther King, you'd expect people to be respectful of your beliefs.
Okay, so you think it's only important to be tolerant of some people's beliefs? So we'll come back to this side now.
6.
So in your opinion, can extremism ever be eradicated?
No, I don't believe so. Extremism has been around for like, quite a long time, and like people take it to different extents. So at all times there'll be some form of extremism somewhere. There's just no way to eradicate it.
So even if it's just people's views and it isn't being expressed, do you think there'll always be extreme views? And
yeah, there'll always be extreme views.
Okay, so we're back to this side.
Number 8.
So using a case study from today, so one of the examples you've looked at today, which views might be considered as extremist and why?
Well, if you use like Adolf Hitler, he like assassinated like millions of Jews because he didn't like them. And if you look at the impact, it caused a negative impact because he also gathered loads of other people that didn't like them, causing more of an impact negatively on society.
Okay. So you think the way he used propaganda and used the media, he got more people on board to take on his ideologies and got his message across, which had a greater impact on society?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Choose a number. 2. So are extremist views always dangerous?
No, because say if you're fighting for positive extremism, so a woman's right or segregation, you're fighting for that, it's not dangerous. If you're walking through a street just peacefully protesting, there's no violence, there's no danger to it, it's not endangering anyone, you're not causing anyone any harm, you're just saying what you believe, so it can't be dangerous.
So having views that are different to the general population isn't dangerous. It's how you go about getting those views across, whether you choose to do it in a positive, non-violent manner, or whether you choose to, be violent is what makes it dangerous or not. Yeah? Okay. Fantastic. We've nearly...
3.
3. How can we help prevent people from becoming extremists?
We could stop trying to force people to believe something you're believing in, and if people are forced into extremist groups, you could try help them out a bit, kind of.
Okay, so if people are being forced to become an extremist, what could we do about that?
Show them it's not right.
So education?
Yeah.
Yeah, so teach about it in schools. Unfortunately, I think we've got a bit of a draw going on with this thoughts and crosses today. We'll have the last one anyway. Can there ever be a good reason for someone to have extremist views?
I think there can be, as long as you're advocating for the rights of a group without removing the rights of another group.
Okay, so as long as you're being respectful of everybody's rights, and not removing rights from others by what you're doing, then you think it's okay. Well done for today's lesson, okay, and moving forward in the next lesson, okay, we will be developing our critical thinking skills, okay, when we are evaluating sources, evaluating the media, okay, to see whether or not we can believe and we can take things as truths. So looking at fake news, and for you to be able to develop the skills to read through things, to actually work out for yourselves, is it fake, is it true or not?